The Saudi-Pakistan Defence Pact is being described as a bold shift in the geopolitical chessboard. But when examined carefully, it reflects less of Pakistan's newfound strength and more of Saudi Arabia's nervousness. For decades, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has relied heavily on external powers for its security. First, the United States, and increasingly, as Washington's interest in Middle Eastern conflicts has waned, on alternative partners. By signing this pact with Pakistan, Riyadh is signaling a deep insecurity about its strategic environment. It faces a volatile neighborhood shaped by Iran's regional assertiveness, shifting American commitments, and the rise of new security threats from both state and non-state actors. Yet, instead of establishing a new independent defense capability or forging a stronger security arrangement with a major power, Saudi Arabia has chosen Pakistan, a country with its own economic fragility and internal challenges. This choice illustrates that Riyadh is not confident about relying solely on itself or on the US, but is also wary of being pulled too close into Beijing's orbit. The Pakistan connection becomes a hedge, not a cornerstone for Pakistan. The pact is celebrated domestically as evidence of international trust and relevance, but it also signals dependency. Islamabad has long been financially supported by Riyadh through bailouts, oil concessions, and aid packages. The relationship is not one of equals, but of necessity. Pakistan needs Saudi money to stabilize its fragile economy, while Saudi Arabia needs Pakistan's military manpower and, implicitly, its nuclear deterrent. The pact therefore highlights Pakistan's vulnerability. Riyadh knows it can extract concessions and commitments from Pakistan precisely because Islamabad cannot afford to say no. By locking itself into such an agreement, Pakistan exposes itself to being drawn into conflicts that may not serve its own national interest. This creates potential overstretch, where Pakistan's already strained defense and economic resources are further pressured by commitments to the Gulf. For India, this asymmetry represents an opportunity. As Saudi Arabia doubles down on a military arrangement with Pakistan, it deepens its economic and diplomatic courtship with India. Riyadh understands that its long-term growth, diversification, and modernization goals, such as Vision 2030, cannot be met without robust economic ties to large, stable markets. India, with its enormous population, rising consumption, and expanding technological capabilities, is indispensable in this respect. The Defense Pact, ironically, makes Saudi Arabia more reliant on India in non-military spheres, because the kingdom cannot afford to alienate New Delhi while it leans on Islamabad militarily. India becomes the balancing pillar. Its economic weight ensures that Saudi Arabia must continue to treat India as a critical partner, even while engaging with Pakistan in the military sphere. Moreover, this pact unintentionally dilutes Pakistan's diplomatic leverage. By showcasing itself as Riyadh's military partner, Pakistan risks being pigeonholed as a subcontractor for Saudi defense needs. India, in contrast, presents itself as a responsible global actor that engages in strategic partnerships without binding itself into potentially destabilizing entanglements. This contrast plays in India's favor, particularly in the eyes of Washington, Brussels, and Tokyo, which are looking for stable partners in the Indo-Pacific and the broader global order. While Islamabad's agreement with Riyadh may momentarily look like a triumph, it actually underlines its dependence, and that weakens its long-term hand. India, observing this from New Delhi, gains diplomatic leverage by appearing measured, balanced, and indispensable. In short, the Saudi-Pakistan Pact is less a show of Pakistani strength than a demonstration of Saudi unease. It ties two vulnerable partners together, but also makes them more reliant on India's economic, diplomatic, and political steadiness. The real winner is not the country shouting victory on the day of the signing, but the one quietly building long-term influence through patience, economic might, and strategic restraint. India, by staying the course, emerges with enhanced leverage at the very moment its neighbors are locking themselves into precarious dependencies. The nuclear shadow that hovers over the Saudi-Pakistan is perhaps the most significant and controversial element of the agreement. Pakistan's defense minister openly hinted that Pakistan's nuclear deterrent could, if necessary, be made available to Saudi Arabia. Though this was framed as a reassurance to Riyadh, it has triggered alarm across the global security landscape. On the surface, such a statement looks like a bold assertion of Pakistani strength, but when examined carefully, it reveals deep vulnerabilities for Islamabad and an unexpected opportunity for New Delhi. For decades, Pakistan has derived its international standing not from economic vitality or technological prowess, but from its possession of nuclear weapons. The nuclear deterrent, born of rivalry with India, has been presented domestically as a symbol of national pride and sovereignty. By offering to extend even the suggestion of that deterrent to Saudi Arabia, Pakistan risks diluting its most precious asset. Nuclear credibility is a delicate commodity. Once it is tied to another nation's security calculus, questions emerge about control, command structures, and the willingness to act on such promises. Saudi Arabia may see reassurance in Pakistan's words, but the rest of the international community sees danger, a potential pathway to nuclear proliferation in one of the most volatile regions of the world. This danger places Pakistan in an awkward position. Islamabad insists that it has no intention of formally transferring nuclear weapons or technology, but even rhetorical commitments invite scrutiny. The United States, Europe, and international watchdogs, such as the IAEA, take nuclear proliferation extremely seriously. Any hint that Pakistan is providing an informal nuclear umbrella to Riyadh could invite sanctions, diplomatic pressure, and renewed questions about the security of its arsenal. Far from projecting strength, Pakistan risks isolating itself and being seen as an irresponsible nuclear custodian. That reputation further undermines its already fragile economy and could deter foreign investment or international cooperation. India, in contrast, benefits from this comparison. New Delhi has carefully cultivated an image of being a responsible nuclear power, reluctant to weaponize rhetoric, committed to no first use doctrine, and integrated into the global nuclear order through agreements such as the Indo-US nuclear deal. At a moment when Pakistan hints at extending its deterrent beyond its borders, India appears restrained, measured, and dependable, This reinforces the perception of India as a stable partner for major powers, particularly the United States, Japan, and Europe, who are increasingly wary of nuclear risks in fragile states. Because in international diplomacy, perception matters as much as capability. Pakistan's boast amplifies India's credibility. From Riyadh's perspective, Pakistan's nuclear card is a hedge against Iran. Saudi Arabia has long worried about Tehran's nuclear ambitions, and Pakistan, as the only Muslim majority nation with nuclear weapons, offers symbolic reassurance. Yet symbolism is not strategy. Pakistan's offer cannot be credibly guaranteed in a real crisis without enormous risks, and Riyadh knows this. That is why, even while signing a defense pact with Islamabad, Saudi Arabia maintains deep economic ties with India and security partnerships with the United States. In other words, Pakistan's nuclear rhetoric may win applause in the short term, but Saudi Arabia's actual reliance will remain diversified. This creates a paradox. By invoking its nuclear capability on Saudi Arabia's behalf, Pakistan inadvertently undermines its own deterrence credibility and pushes Riyadh to continue looking elsewhere for true security guarantees. For India, this is useful. It highlights Pakistan as unpredictable and risky, while elevating India as predictable and reliable. In the long run, Riyadh is more likely to deepen economic and technological ties with New Delhi, because stability, not rhetoric, is what sustains modernization projects like Vision 2030. There is also a wider regional implication. Israel, deeply concerned about nuclear proliferation in the Middle East, will see Pakistan's statements as dangerous. Washington and Brussels, already skeptical of Pakistan's reliability, will treat such rhetoric as destabilizing. Iran will interpret it as an act of hostility, raising the risk of proxy conflicts. Each of these reactions adds pressure on Pakistan, while none of them directly target India. Instead, India gains room to maneuver diplomatically, portraying itself as the actor that avoids irresponsible nuclear gamesmanship. Ultimately, the nuclear shadow of the Saudi-Pakistan Defence Pact casts a darker light on Pakistan than on any of its rivals, by hinting that its nuclear arsenal could extend to Saudi Arabia. Pakistan seeks prestige but risks isolation. For India, the consequences are more favorable. The contrast strengthens its image as a responsible stakeholder in global security, enhances its diplomatic credibility, and indirectly strengthens its hand in dealings with both the West and the Gulf. In the great game of perception and credibility, Pakistan's nuclear rhetoric is a gamble, but India's restraint is a quiet, steady win. India's strategic opportunity in the wake of the Saudi-Pakistan Defence Pact lies not in military maneuvers, but in the subtle art of economic and diplomatic positioning. When Riyadh formalized a defense agreement with Islamabad, it was easy to assume that New Delhi had lost ground. Yet in truth, this pact exposes the limits of the Saudi-Pakistan relationship and simultaneously elevates India's role in the Gulf. Military ties may bind Saudi Arabia to Pakistan, but economic and technological imperatives pull the kingdom inexorably toward India. This divergence is not a contradiction. It is the very essence of modern geopolitics, where nations hedge their bets militarily but invest their future in stable, rising economies. India's greatest strength today is not simply its growing military capacity, but its vast and expanding economic clout. With one of the world's fastest growing large economies, India represents the consumption engine that Saudi Arabia desperately needs as it seeks to diversify away from oil under Vision 2030. Riyadh cannot afford to bet solely on military allies. It must secure long-term markets for its energy exports, partnerships in renewable technologies, and investments in infrastructure. Pakistan, with its economic struggles and persistent instability, cannot provide that future. India, by contrast, offers scale, stability, and credibility. Every move Riyadh makes toward Islamabad militarily is balanced by an equal or greater economic move toward New Delhi. This is India's opportunity to let Pakistan shoulder the burden of symbolic military posturing, while India consolidates itself as the indispensable partner for Saudi Arabia's modernization. Already, Saudi investments are flowing into Indian energy projects, technology ventures, and infrastructure. For Riyadh, these ties are not optional but necessary, and for India, they represent leverage. The more Saudi Arabia depends on Indian markets and talent, the more carefully it must calibrate its military partnership with Pakistan. This interdependence shields India from strategic isolation and ensures that, even in the shadow of the Defence Pact, New Delhi remains central to Riyadh's long-term vision. Diplomatically, India can capitalize on this moment by presenting itself as the stable anchor in South Asia. Pakistan may be Riyadh's chosen security subcontractor, but subcontractors are replaceable. What is irreplaceable is trust in economic and political stability, and that is India's offering. By maintaining balanced ties with both Saudi Arabia and Iran, New Delhi demonstrates independence and pragmatism. So Riyadh respects that, even if it occasionally tilts militarily toward Islamabad. The pact, therefore, does not diminish India, rather it clarifies the roles. Pakistan is Riyadh's short-term security partner. India is its long-term growth partner. In strategic weight, the latter matters more. Moreover, this situation provides India with diplomatic insulation. Should tensions rise between Iran and Saudi Arabia, Pakistan could find itself drawn directly into Riyadh's conflicts, risking entanglement in Middle Eastern disputes. India, on the other hand, maintains partnerships with both Tehran and Riyadh, avoiding entrapment. If Pakistan overextends, India's position as a neutral but powerful economic partner becomes even more valuable. That positioning allows New Delhi to speak with credibility not only in Riyadh, but also in Washington, Brussels, and Tokyo, all of whom seek stable anchors in a turbulent Middle East. There is also the dimension of soft power. India's vast diaspora in the Gulf, numbering in the millions, forms an essential labor and skills base that Saudi Arabia cannot replace. These communities strengthen cultural and economic ties far beyond what Pakistan can offer. In fact, while Pakistan provides security personnel, India provides the engineers, doctors, and entrepreneurs who sustain the Gulf's transformation. That demographic fact makes India indispensable. Riyadh may sign a military pact with Islamabad, but when it comes to building its future, it cannot function without New Delhi's human capital. The opportunity for India, then, is to double down on this indispensability by expanding energy partnerships, promoting technology collaboration, and leveraging its labor force in the Gulf, India can secure its role as Saudi Arabia's partner of the future. Every move Pakistan makes to align militarily with Riyadh paradoxically makes India more valuable because it highlights the contrast. A Pakistan that is locked into narrow defense commitments versus an India that provides broad, sustainable, and future-oriented growth. Thus, while headlines may suggest that the Saudi-Pakistan Pact sidelines India, the reality is the opposite. It crystallizes the roles of each player in Saudi Arabia's strategy. Pakistan is the shield, but India is the engine. And in the 21st century, engines of growth are more powerful than shields of insecurity. By staying focused on economic diplomacy, India not only retains its influence, but expands it, ensuring that Riyadh's long-term bet is not on Islamabad's soldiers, but on New Delhi's markets and people. The larger geopolitical frame of the Saudi-Pakistan Defence Pact reveals how a regional arrangement between two states can ripple far beyond their borders, altering calculations for major powers and shaping the balance of global security. For Washington, Beijing, and Tel Aviv, the agreement complicates planning, forcing them to reconsider assumptions about deterrence, proliferation, and alliances. But for New Delhi, the effect is somewhat paradoxical. The pact actually clarifies the landscape. It reduces ambiguity by locking Pakistan into a visible role and by exposing Saudi Arabia's insecurities, while simultaneously enhancing India's space to maneuver economically, diplomatically, and strategically. To understand this, one must begin with the United States. Washington has long been Saudi Arabia's ultimate security guarantor, but American fatigue with Middle Eastern entanglements has created a vacuum. Into that vacuum, Pakistan has stepped, presenting itself as Riyadh's reliable partner. Yet from the perspective of U.S. policymakers, this is troubling. Pakistan is often seen in Washington as a risky actor, embroiled in domestic instability, heavily indebted to China, and prone to supporting militant proxies. If Saudi Arabia leans on Pakistan for defense, America worries about the possibility of escalation, particularly with nuclear undertones. That concern may push Washington closer to India, viewing New Delhi as the responsible counterweight in South Asia and a steady partner in the broader Indo-Pacific. Ironically, what Islamabad celebrates as a win may accelerate the US-India strategic embrace. For Beijing, the picture is also complicated. China has invested heavily in Pakistan through the Belt and Road Initiative, particularly via the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. On the surface, Beijing may welcome deeper Saudi-Pakistan ties since they connect two of its partners. But Beijing also understands the risks. A Saudi-Pakistan military alignment that hints at nuclear cooperation could destabilize the Gulf, through which vital Chinese energy imports flow. Instability there threatens Beijing's core interests. By contrast, India, though a rival, is also a crucial energy partner for Saudi Arabia and a growing market for Chinese goods. China, therefore, cannot view the pact as an unqualified success. Once again, India's stability, compared to Pakistan's volatility, appears more attractive even to adversaries who compete with it globally. Israel too is drawn into the frame. For Tel Aviv, the specter of Saudi Arabia aligning militarily with a nuclear-capable Pakistan is deeply unsettling. Israel has cautiously cultivated ties with Gulf states, including Saudi Arabia, in response to shared concerns about Iran. But a defense pact that introduces Pakistani nuclear rhetoric into the equation complicates this fragile alignment. Israel will have to reconsider its own regional strategies, possibly deepening back, channel engagement with India, a nation with whom it shares growing defense and technology partnerships. From this perspective, New Delhi again benefits from the contrast. Israel sees it as a reliable partner in a way that Islamabad, with its volatile commitments, is not. Iran, of course, interprets the pact as a direct threat. Tehran views Pakistan with suspicion and Saudi Arabia with hostility, and the idea that the two might coordinate militarily, especially with nuclear undertones, intensifies its sense of encirclement. This increases the likelihood of proxy conflicts from Yemen to the Gulf waters. In such a scenario, Pakistan risks being dragged into conflicts not of its own making, while India maintains a more balanced position, engaging with both Tehran and Riyadh. For New Delhi, this balance is a strength. It allows India to play the role of a pragmatic, independent actor, respected by multiple sides, even in times of heightened tension. The global non-proliferation regime also enters the equation. Pakistan's loose talk of nuclear umbrellas undermines decades of painstaking diplomacy designed to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. For the international community, India emerges once more as the responsible contrast. New Delhi's nuclear doctrine is transparent, restrained, and widely regarded as credible. In an era where credibility matters as much as capability, India is rewarded diplomatically whenever Pakistan hints at dangerous alternatives. All of this underscores a deeper reality. The Saudi-Pakistan Defence Pact, while presented as a bilateral win, actually reshuffles alignments in ways that often favor India. It cements Pakistan's role as Riyadh's military subcontractor, exposing Islamabad to international scrutiny and potential overextension. It highlights Saudi Arabia's insecurities, making it ever more reliant on India's economic and technological partnerships. It alarms Washington, Beijing, and Tel Aviv, pushing each of them closer to New Delhi for stability. And it raises Iran's anxieties, which paradoxically enhances India's value as a mediator capable of balancing ties with both Gulf rivals. In the larger geopolitical frame, therefore, India does not lose from this pact. It gains. The agreement strips away ambiguity, clarifies roles, and heightens contrasts. Pakistan becomes the fragile military partner, Saudi Arabia the anxious sponsor, while India quietly consolidates its position as the stable, responsible, indispensable power. In geopolitics, clarity is often more valuable than noise, and in the clarity of this moment, India sees a path to deepen its influence in the Gulf, strengthen its partnerships with major powers, and cement its role as a central pillar of the emerging global order. The Saudi-Pakistan Defence Pact may appear on the surface as a diplomatic and military triumph for Islamabad, but beneath the headlines it tells a more complex story, one that ultimately favors New Delhi. By binding itself tightly to Riyadh's insecurities, Pakistan risks international isolation overextension, and heightened scrutiny over its nuclear intentions.